Sorority Incorporated Gamma Alpha Tau Zeta chapter. And tonight we will be talking about navigating mental health and understanding its impacts on relationships. So, again, I thank all of you for being here. I will be your moderator tonight. And we have two guests with us. We have Aki Dorm and we have Johnny Gaithers with us. And so I will let you all introduce yourselves. Mr. Dorm.
Hello, everybody. My full name is Aki Jamal Durham. For the curious, Aki and Jamal are both Hebrew and Arabic. Durham is Scottish. I'm none of that stuff. I'm just a regular black dude who grew up in Wilkinsburg. I do have a master's degree in human health and counseling services with an emphasis in marriage and family therapy.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you with us tonight. And Mr. Johnny.
Yeah. So good evening, everyone. My name is Johnny Gathers. I'm a mental health therapist and a licensed social worker. I work for hand-to-hand counseling services. Overall, been in this field for 12 years. And yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It is great to have both of you here. I know the impact that you make on your clients, and you guys are both dedicated to your field. This isn't just something that you do, it's hard work for each of you. And so, again, we really appreciate you all being here with us tonight. So, we're going to get started. My first question is, what is your definition of mental health, and why do you believe it's critical for maintaining healthy relationships?
I could stab at it first. Mental health is no different than any other form of wellness. Um, we were joking about a young lady who's in dental school or applying for dental school, and that's one form of health and wellness. We all have or should have a PCP, another form of health and wellness. There's no reason we shouldn't look at our brain and mind health and wellness in the same way that we look at our teeth, our body, etc. And so we need to start there if we're going to destigmatize it. If you're not talking about total wellness, you're not talking about total wellness. You're not having a fully integrated view of self if you're not considering your mental health.
Mhm. That's good. That's good. And Johnny, can you add more about how it's crucial in maintaining a healthy relationship with others?
Yeah. So overall, within mental health, if I want to get my definition of what mental health is, it's basically your well-being. So it's looking at your physical self and your physical self and yourself internally and externally, and how it's crucial when it comes to relationships because it helps us to be more aware of how we think, how we feel, and how we interact with people. If we're not taking care of ourselves in general, that does spread in our relationships, and then that causes an impact in our relationships. So if we're not really looking into ourselves internally and externally and really being more in tune of how we do things, how we shape our emotions and our thoughts, then it's going to cause an effect in our relationships with individuals.
That is so true. That cause and effect. Um, that is usually the root to everything that we're experiencing. Something has happened and it has had an impact on other people around us. And sometimes it's a positive impact, but sometimes this can be a little messy. And inside of sorority, we definitely deal with that as we engage with each other. So obviously, sometimes we're talking about relationship, maybe with an intimate partner, but we have relationships with all types of individuals, with our peers, with our family members, and within the different organizations that we work within in the community. Relationships really do matter. And so understanding the cause and effect is definitely important. So, what are some of the common misconceptions about mental health that you think women encounter in their relationships with men or within their communities? And we'll stick with you, Johnny. You can go first.
Okay, so with me and the aspect we're going to talk about men. So the first misconception is that men don't know how to share their feelings. Um, in a sense, we always look at that stigma that, oh, men don't know how to do this, men don't know how to do that. But in the aspect when it comes to relationships, men don't really fully know how to express themselves because of that stigma that's being placed on men, saying that, oh, if you go to therapy or if you get help and support, that it's a sign of weakness. So that kind of pushed that misconception out there that, okay, men don't really know how to fully express themselves, but really in reality, men actually do know how to express themselves, but they don't know how to fully express themselves in a way of being able to be appreciated or a way to be able to be heard or listened to. Another thing, men don't know how to be empathetic. Um, in a sense, there is that misconception out there, but kind of goes back into that aspect of teaching men how to really be in tune to their emotions, and being able to respect like their thoughts and their feelings and such, so they could be able to learn how to be more empathetic and understand what other people are going through and everything. A big community thing as a whole is with men. I mean, with mental health as in general, is mental health as a sign of weakness. But as we just, talked about this evening, that mental health is more about our overall well-being. It's not about diagnosis. It's not about, oh, being put on this medication and things of that nature. Is about our overall taking care of ourselves. And if taking care of ourselves is a weakness, then that's a problem. We got to always take care of ourselves, and everything. And then the most common thing that we all hear, especially in the Black community, I don't need no therapy. We all need some therapy. Most of the times when we think about therapy, they think of the most common thing of laying on the couch and things of that nature. But there's different ways of doing therapy. You could express your emotions in therapy. You could do art in therapy. There's different forms of therapy. There's the normal, common aspect of what you see on TV and such.
Mm.
I think that is well said. And I think, what I heard when you were talking, Johnny, is how does a woman make the space safe for a man to
Mhm.
be empathetic and to express his feelings, and to let his guard down. And again, that's still true in all relationships. What are the boundaries? And is it safe for someone to be their authentic self and to be transparent in those places where they may feel vulnerable? Is definitely something that I think we all can probably reconsider. Do we make the space safe?
Right.
Do we make the safe space? Aki, can you share some insights from your clinical practices about how mental health issues can specifically affect women in their relationships?
Yeah, I'll go right with that concept of safety and build on that. I've dealt with just about every sort of client you could think of. I've dealt with children, teens, young adults, adults, folks nearing or at the stage of elderly. I've dealt with individuals. I've dealt with couples. I've dealt with adults and their aging parents in counseling. I've dealt with full families where I've had as many as 8 people from the same family in a room or a Zoom room with me at the same time. And safety is always an issue. What is unique for women with regards to safety is the perspective that safety they have from a man is more than just what emanates from their mind. Um, the way men and women correlate with one another, certainly men need to feel a certain amount of safety to be emotional with their wives, but women also depend on their men to give them additional forms of safety, right? It's not just about her heart, it's also about her body, right? Her physical well-being, your presence, and not just how you deal with her directly, but how you deal with the world around her and how the world around her affects her, and your ability to shape that space as safe for her as well is unique to a woman's experience when she's in a relationship with a man in a way that a man just quite frankly doesn't experience. And it's difficult in this day and age because of the way we've blurred some lines and because of the way information gets thrown at us, rather, let me say, the way misinformation gets thrown at us, that we often find ourselves trying to create a safety for our own selves, men and women, in a way that makes it difficult for the other person to provide. I've talked recently in other similar situations and scenarios. I'm so thankful. This is about the 8th time I've been in such a meeting this year alone. The 3rd time this week alone, and I got a 4th one on Saturday. But I found myself trying to show people that your needs and your abilities are typically innate within you, And because the world has been beating down on your family for generations prior to you getting here, your ability to have your needs met by the people who were supposed to meet your needs created what at the time were adaptive behaviors for you to find safety for yourself. Okay, you can't give me safety the way I need it from you, so I'll find safety for myself.
Mhm.
And when you do that as a child, it's necessary, right? You whatever you do, boo boo, to be safe, be safe. But then you carry that into an adult relationship, right? And that adaptive behavior is now a maladaptive behavior. If you're aligned with someone who actually does have the ability to meet those needs of safety for you, but because your expectation is disappointment, you respond to their actual abilities as if there's something erroneous about them. And that's what
Mhm.
happens. That's what happens for women in many cases, simply because of a pattern of history of generational curses that have yet to be broken. Then maybe you've aligned with a man who can help you break them. And maybe you're unable to accept that love because of the trauma you've experienced.
And I like that. Can I piggyback off of that as well?
Please do, bro.
Because you hit the pinpoint. 'Cause my thing is with it is overall is that most people don't realize that they're carrying emotional baggage. And that's what I normally work with my clients that are in relationships that they don't realize that they have baggage that they're carrying. And with that baggage, when we unpack those different layers within that baggage, that help them to really see that, okay, I'm carrying past trauma. I'm carrying past expectations of what I want. I'm carrying past things that wasn't fulfilled from childhood to now, and I'm still carrying it. And with you releasing that baggage, it will help you to kind of let those things go, but also embrace what's in front of you. Embrace your current relationship. Be in that present moment with your relationship and everything. Embrace the goodness in the relationship because there's some moments where you might miss out the goodness or miss out the blessing or opportunity because you're still holding on to something from years ago that you didn't realize it until you fully see that and unpacking that, oh wow, I'm carrying this and I'm bringing it in the relationship. And then that causes riffraff in the relationship. That might cause a breakup. That might cause separation, things of that nature. But really diving deep into really layering out what those past traumas are and figuring out how can you move past it so you can embrace what's there for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that we can all relate to moments in work that we do in the community or something that's happening inside of one's own home where someone is being triggered by a past experience in their present and they can't see what is happening, right? And so if someone who is on the outside looking in can say, wait a minute, they're personalizing this in a way like this wasn't this big. How did this become so much larger than this particular moment? And they're unable to be present without attaching it to all the baggage that they're carrying along.
Mhm.
And so as women are navigating through, so whether we are talking about in our own relationships or whether we are out in the community offering a service, being able to recognize, hey, this person is bringing more into this situation than what this situation is calling for. And us as women being able to not put our guard up and respond right in a way like, who are you talking? You know how that can go. But to pause and to be empathetic and to give space for that opportunity to listen and kind of ask more questions, not creating a therapy session because we're not licensed to do so, but what happened and what made you feel that way? And perhaps trying to de escalate just a little bit to help them see, well, wait a minute, maybe there is more good in this moment that I'm giving credit to because it has tapped into something painful or something that reminds me of something painful. And my guard has, gone immediately up. I think in Black community, that cliche word for it is passive aggressive. They're being passive aggressive. And they might not be being passive aggressive. It really could just be a trauma response because something is happening that is reminding them of something that they're keeping deep inside of themselves that no one else or, has full understanding about what is going on. So I definitely appreciate that insight that you guys are giving that It's that baggage. It's that baggage. And lightweight in the community, we talk about the baggage. We act like we know about the baggage. But can both of you talk a little bit more about how to begin unpacking the baggage, specifically when someone isn't in therapy and isn't receiving that clinical help?
So normally what I do with my clients is there is a 7-step process I do with them. And it takes time for them to actually deal with processing that baggage. So the first thing I ask them is this: do you know that this baggage exists? And if they say yes, then we'll move on to the next step. If they say no, we'll have a conversation about it and say, okay, why do you feel like this baggage doesn't exist and everything, until they get into full reality to say, yeah, this do exist. Once we go past the existence piece, then we say, okay, what is the history of the baggage? What are some things that, what stems from you carrying this baggage to this day? So they might say some examples of, well, when I was 6 years old, this happened, or, so on and so on. So going through those, moments of where it actually stemmed from. Then once we go through the history of it, then we go into memories. What are some memories that you still carry on to this day? And talk about those memories in full perspective. Once we go through the memories, ask them, what are some memories that they feel like they're willing to kind of let go, or leave behind, or move past? And once they feel capable of moving past that, then you got to go to the next step, which is forgiveness. So asking, do you forgive yourself from those memories that you had from your past? And once they say, yes, I'm ready to forgive myself, then you can move on to the next step. If they're not ready to forgive themselves, have a deeper conversation of why they feel like they're not ready to forgive themselves for that moment. Because most of the times when people don't want to forgive themselves in that moment, they kind of think that they're to blame of those things happening. And in reality, some things is beyond our control. Some things got put on us, and we kind of, was pushed to say that, oh, it's in our control because people told us that was in our control, or people told us that you're the reason that this happened. But in reality, so most cases, we're not the reason that those things are happening. Once you get to that aspect of forgiveness, then you go into self-care, asking yourself, okay, while you're practicing and letting go of this baggage, what are some things that you can do to make yourself feel better? What are some things that you could do that make yourself feel good, feel happy and such? And then once we get to that, all those 6 steps, we go to the final step, which is your new narrative. What is your new story that you want to walk with moving forward, since you are letting this particular baggage go and everything? And I normally do this with my clients. They love it. With my females, I'll draw like a purse, and I had them put sticky notes inside that purse. For men, I'll draw a suitcase, or have like a basketball bag or anything like that, and we'll go through the same process. And they love it, because most of the times, most people don't realize the stuff that they holding on to and everything. And most of my clients will be honest and say, "Well, Johnny, I'm not ready to move to the next step yet." And I say, well, let's keep going in this same step. Let's process it. Let's work through it until you feel ready to move on to the next step.
Yeah, that was such a thorough explanation, Johnny, man. That was brilliant. One of the things I'll just kind of add to what Johnny said is that the profundity of making it simple, right? Like Johnny put it in terms they could refer to. Here's your purse, here's your gym bag. What's in this? What's in these things? And I do something very similar. I ask people, if they're aware that they've brought baggage. And even those who don't necessarily think they have, once I start talking about the different ways we show up with our bags, and they hear the way they showed up with theirs, they realize, oh, I guess I did have bags. I'm like, yep, some of y'all came up, left them bags in the trunk. But the trunk is parked out front in that car. Them issues is still there. Some of you brought your bags in and said, "Look, baby, here go my." Some of y'all scurried upstairs and threw them in the attic. Some of y'all was bold enough to not only say, "I got these bags," y'all was bold enough to unpack and start pulling stuff out. Some of y'all said, "I got these bags," but we ain't paying no attention to these bags. They just bags, right? And so once I start breaking it down in that way, everyone kind of hears their approach and their reality to how they do or do not process. And just breaking it down in layman's terms like that just makes it real and relatable for people, right? I mean, I could go into, what are your family dynamics? How did culture play into this? What are your trauma? What are your triggers? Even the words that sound familiar, they're still fairly clinical, right? when I break it down in those sorts of analogies, it just opens people up to talk about it in a way that is just not intimidating.
That's good. I appreciate that. I think you both said things that each of us on this call can take away into our day-to-day lives and maybe work through things a little bit differently. I find that often women can be together and identify something has happened and identify a woman is triggered and she's responding in a way that may feel a little out of pocket, and people will watch in silence, and then they go back in their little clusters. Did you see her? And she need to know this, and somebody should tell her. Like, well, actually, the somebody is you. You had perfect opportunity
Mm.
to address it, but the language that you all used could equip us to be a little bit better and a little bit more supportive in having those conversations. Again, it takes time, so one conversation is never going to do it, but having a healthy, effective conversation one time can lead to another conversation and another conversation, as opposed to the person putting up their walls and recognizing that this individual is not a safe space for them to talk. So what are some of the differences in how we talked about this a little bit, how men and women experience and communicate mental health challenges inside a relationship? And then how can we navigate? And so, a key, you were talking about a man may do it this way and a woman may do it that way. So, what are some of those differences, and how can a woman navigate when she experiences this?
Yeah, we need to be aware of the stereotypical, I'll say, ways in which we often process differently. This is same thing is not true of every man. The same thing is not true of every woman. However, it seems that men primarily operate from a logic and problem solving model, right? And women typically operate from an emotion and feeling model, right? And so what a woman needs to understand about a man is, first of all, he doesn't think the way you think, right? I've heard it described in this way. The analogy is that a man's mind is like a waffle, a woman's mind is like a plate of spaghetti, right? And so a woman tends to more readily than men connect all similar emotions, feelings, and experiences together and feel them at the same time, right? So when a woman feels an issue, she feels every similar issue like that issue at the same time, right? And so like she's processing this and this and this, and dude is like, wait, hold, hold, no, baby, it's just this. And she's like, nope, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. And so a woman needs to understand your man's mind doesn't work that way. That doesn't mean he's broken. That doesn't mean you're broken. It just means you're different, right? And so one of the things I encourage men and women to do is men don't rush to fix, right? And first feel for her, right? Give her your feeling, give her empathy, right? Because while she might not be able to articulate that's what she needs, that's typically what she needs. She needs you to feel. She might want to fix from you at some point, but not until you feel, right?
Mhm.
And so as a woman, you need to understand that about yourself. You need to be willing and open to articulating that to your man. Slow down, baby. I'm feeling a bunch of stuff, right? I need you to at least feel some of what I'm feeling, right? And if you can't directly feel it, let me know that you know I'm feeling it, right? And then once we're there, maybe solution finding can happen.
Mm.
But sometimes a woman doesn't need a solution. She just needs you to sit in the feelings with her, right? And I don't know if women even know that about themselves at all times, right? And so being hyper aware of I need to process emotion before I start to rationalize things is important for both parties.
That's good. I could have used you in a conversation I was having with my husband 2 weeks ago. Absolutely. He was trying to
Amen.
fix and I was trying to
Stop trying to
feel, and he
fix.
was like, "Well, why do you feel that way?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he's like, "Well," I'm like, I don't want to talk about why I don't know. I
Right.
just want to feel what I'm
The
feeling
feeling,
right now." And
literally.
he was just kind of like, "Okay." So
Mhm.
that was good for me personally.
Okay, good. Good to hear.
I
Yeah.
like that analogy as well too, Never heard that analogy before. The waffle and the spaghetti.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The waffle is like it's a bunch of boxes, and we can be in one box at a
Mhm.
time. And what women don't know is we got a box that ain't got nothing in it, and that's a comfortable box for us to go to.
That's true.
Like a woman is like, you ain't thinking or feeling nothing, and when we say no, they think we're lying. But now we literally have the ability to get in a certain box and just shut off. We can be very siloed. Again, not every man is exactly the same. Not every woman is exactly the same. Some men are more wired that way than others. Some women are actually wired that way too.
Mhm.
One thing I have found in all the marriage counseling I've done in my 10 years and hundreds of couples that I've worked with, if I'm dealing with an emotional male, guess what kind of female he married? A logical female, because the
Mhm.
two always seem to come together, right?
Mhm.
Because it seems that we were designed that way to give each other balance in that way.
Absolutely. And then, as couples, you have children. And so your children are going to be one way or the other way. And so even outside of relationships, so even if you're a single mom, you still have children who have personalities that are one way or another way. And it's important to understand this to be able to relate. I just saw a comment pop up in the box that said, I need a do nothing box. And I think that that is true. And so inside of sorority, we have our worker bees, right, who are always that small percent that are getting it done, crossing T's, dotting the I's, forward thinking, doing all the things, and looking at the others like, you're a wallflower. And perhaps,
Mhm.
there
Right.
may be some dynamics in there, but there's
Mhm.
also a valuable place where perhaps they can have a box where they are doing nothing and they're comfortable in that box and they don't feel the need to fix and to cross the T and to dot the I. And so that balance is crucial. It is crucial to have it in all dynamics. And I'm sure, we can see that in the workplace as well. Um, with different teams and different departments and what are those personalities like. And so I think we can all relate to the spaghetti and the waffle. That might become a little key word that we're using amongst ourselves. So I do thank you for that relatable examples. So, in terms of indicators of mental health struggles, so again, we're talking about inside of sorority, inside of relationship, well, or fraternities. I'm sorry, Johnny, inside of organizations, inside of community groups. Um, Sometimes we see the trigger, we see the red flag. And so, what are some key signs that someone might be struggling with their mental health, and how can their partners or their coworkers support them in these instances? And I'll start with you, Johnny.
Yeah. So first thing, changes in their daily routine that might cause an impact. So if they're not doing the normal way of functioning of living, that's an indicator. Another thing that could be an indicator is appetite changes. If you're noticing that they're not eating like they normally do, that's an indicator. If they isolate, if they self-isolating themselves and don't want to be around nobody and stuff, that's a sign of it as well. Lack of communication, so they don't want to talk to nobody. If you ask them what's going on, they say I'm good, but low key deep down inside they're going through it. That's a sign of that there's a struggle going on and everything. And there's a lot the list from those are the main typical ones. But what individuals can do to support someone that is going through that is just basically doing a simple check-in. Most of the times when individuals are going through stuff, they kind of suffer through it alone. But if somebody was easily just to pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm just calling to check on you, you never know, that could change someone's life. Just to say that, hey, at least that person is reaching out to me, that person is letting me know that they care about me in some sort. And you never know, that simple check-in can help them to say, okay, I need to get out this phone, or I need to go talk to this person because they checked on me and I'm gonna ask them for help and stuff. So like basically a simple check-in. Now, there was a question that popped up and said, what if they are in denial, even though they clearly showing the signs of distress? So in the aspect of being in denial and everything, and it kind of goes into the way of the communication piece. If they feel like they are in denial, you can allow them to have that sense of validation of it, because most of the times when people say that, okay, I don't feel this way or that way or whatever, and then we kind of try to take over them, they might they might really step back some more in a sense. But what we have to do in that moment of whatever they give to us, we have to be able to just validate what they're saying to us right now and help them process it through and say, okay, I understand, you need some time, you need a moment, or you don't want to really fully believe that this is going on right now. Sit in those feelings, but still let them know that, okay, if when you're ready to talk or when you're ready to, get this going, I'm here for you. I'm in your corner and stuff. Because most of the times we so quick to want to solve things, but not really, you know, rely on that person to really say that, okay, we understand, what they're going, we understand what you're going through, or we understand, that you're feeling this way right now and such.
Can I add to
That's
that?
good. Yes, I was going to say, do you have anything
Yeah.
to add to that?
Yeah. The baseline activity that I think we can all be more intentional about, and this is not just with regards to being able to check in with a person in regards to their mental health. Um, Slow down and pay closer attention. Slow down and pay closer attention. And not everybody is a full blown or has the capacity to become a full blown empath, right? Someone who just naturally gives empathy at all times. I happen to have been wired in that way, and then I went and got training to be even more that way, right? I don't expect everyone to walk around and do that the way I do it, right? Um, but we all have the ability to increase it. Like there is a cognitive part of empathy that every one of us can dial into, tap into, and get a little bit better at if we slow down and pay closer attention. Johnny, I think you maybe even alluded to this in the beginning of your statement. When you ask someone how they're doing, like it doesn't matter how they're doing, they're probably going to tell you they're okay. We'll stop going into those conversations expecting just to hear okay and move on, right? Don't ask the question if you ain't interested. If you ask that question, ask it with genuine interest. I'm always checking in with my clients before we start a session. Now, I not only do counseling, but I also do executive leadership coaching, right? And I let my clients know, like, look, you have the benefit of having a counselor as your executive leadership coach. Every once in a while, I'm gonna check you on some emotional stuff because I'm gonna see it, whether you think you're showing it to me or not. I'm gonna read your body language. I'm gonna ask you a question, and your words ain't gonna match your body language, and I'm gonna call you out on it. But every one of us has that ability if we slow down and pay slightly closer attention. And listen, it's not always blatant or obvious, right? Um, when someone's words aren't matching their feelings, but it's an ability we all have if we allow ourselves to dial into it.
That's good. That's really good. I appreciate the comment about slowing down. Um, because if you're so quick to fix, if you are a doer, a busy person, if you are a multitasker, if you wear a lot of hats, slowing down can feel impossible, feel like something you don't have the luxury, you're not afforded that luxury.
Mhm.
But it is such a powerful move to make, and it doesn't, move to laziness or ineffectiveness. It can make you more effective and it can make you sharper. So I appreciate you all addressing those comments that came in, and specifically those solutions about how we can do things differently, because the mental health is a stigma, and we've identified it in the community as a stigma, and so now we can all openly talk about mental health and its needs, and how we need to address it. But do we actually have tools that we can utilize in very practical ways? Or are we just talking about a thing and still not making any changes in our lifestyle?
Yeah.
So that was really helpful. So, to add on that, what strategies can women use to communicate their mental health needs to their partners effectively?
Repeat the question for me, Latifa.
What strategies can a woman use to communicate their mental health needs to their partner effectively? So now I know I'm struggling. I know I'm not okay. I'm having anxiety. I feel like I can't breathe. How do I tell my partner that I'm struggling? What are some communication tools that I can use to effectively communicate that?
Johnny, I see you
So
anxious to jump. Go ahead, bro.
so one common one, and I don't know if y'all ever heard this before, but it's called I statements. I statements are basically where you are getting your point across. So it's like, I feel blank because blank. So you basically state what you're feeling and say the reason why you're feeling that way, because that will give your partner understanding of, okay, the reason why you feel this way is because of X, Y, Z. So that will give them a sense of understanding of it. Because most of the times, if you feel some kind of way, they might isolate themselves because they might think that, oh, it's because all because of me. It's all because of me. This is happening. And in reality, it might not be because of them. It could be through work. It be with other different like environments that you're being impacted with. So basically using that simple I statement of it, and saying like what you really feeling and why you feel that way. Another aspect is more so being assertive. More you got to hold your ground. And even with holding your ground, being assertive more and like in a respectful way. So you're not going to try to tear somebody down, or you're not trying to be at a point that you're knocking somebody down for it, but basically stating like what you need, what you want in this moment and everything.
Yeah.
And also another thing to help you out with this as well too is, you might want to get a second opinion. So rely on your support network and everything to say, okay, I'm thinking this way or I'm feeling this way. I low key want to say this, but I don't know how to say this. Can you help me out with this and everything? So don't be afraid to rely on your support network.
Yeah.
Now I see a comment that
I
said I
want to
feel
respond to that
selfish.
too.
I saw Kia.
Yeah,
Kia was like, oh.
So, because I'm reading too. So it said, I feel selfish with using I statements. I feel as though you shouldn't feel selfish with using I statements because you are just stating to the person what you're feeling and why you feel that way. If you're going to not say what you're feeling or what the reason why you feel that way, you're just going to be bottling things up. And then you're going to be hurting yourself internally, and which is going to impact the things that you do on a regular basis. So don't feel selfish on saying that I feel this way because this, that, and the third. So I'll give a prime example. I'll be like, all right, I feel tired because I had a long day at work today. What's selfish about that? I'm just telling you the reason why I'm tired, why I feel this way. So don't feel selfish about it.
Yeah.
Now you might feel now the thing is I can't believe
We can't have no full blown
now
counseling
look
session, Alicia. Come on now.
but now without I'm gonna get her. But look, now this is the thing. When you are using your I statements, it's based on your delivery as well. So do you deliver your I statement in a way that could be selfish or a way that you kind of low-key want to pop off and everything? That's why your approach when you're using an I statement, or your approach that when you are becoming assertive, you gotta tone it down to really just fully communicate it in a better way instead of just saying that, all right, I'm about to pop off, I'm about to snap, and I'm gonna speak my mind and everything like that. So yeah,
But I think
don't.
I'm
I
sorry,
think
go
it
ahead,
happens
Latrice.
because a lot of times, to Alicia's point, we've waited too late to use the I statements. We have done
Yeah.
exactly what you've
Oh
talked about.
man.
I haven't said it. I have stuffed it. I have isolated. I've tried to pretend like I'm okay when I'm not. And so by
Mhm.
the time we are using a technique, we're also at a place of desperation. So my ask for help and my pop off, they might really be neck and neck.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that may be what is
yeah.
occurring. So go ahead, Key.
So what's amazing about what she did? Her first statement was an I statement.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You made an I statement about I
I
She
feel
sure
statement.
did.
selfish.
She sure did.
Right.
I feel
That's
selfish.
literally, I feel selfish. And you did it in such a way like it wasn't about you placing blame on anyone else. You were totally self-focused. This is what I feel, right? And it felt as though you were saying that out of a care for the person who receives the statements from you. And that's what an I statement, a statement is meant to do, right? It's meant to show you need your needs met, but you're also considering them as you make the statement. Now, listen, I statements and how to make proper ones is a Googleable thing, right? Like you can go out there, Google, how do I make effective I statements? And it'll show you, right? Because what might be happening in the pop-offs, Alicia, is your I statements are really veiled you statements. Like you start with, like you may be starting with I, but then immediately focusing on what that person is or is not doing and throwing a veiled you at them. Like you can say, I don't like when you talk to me that way. That's not an I statement. Right? That's a veiled you statement, right? And so you're on the right path. You are self-aware, and that's a beautiful thing. But I think you probably are closer to being able to use an effective I statement than you think, quite frankly.
Yeah, another good tool that I think everyone on this call can walk away with. Key, when you were speaking, I was framing in my mind. I feel selfish telling you what I need because you're not going to do nothing about it anyway. And there's one more thing, like,
Now see you adding on.
right?
Now see you
You
But
add
adding.
but a lot of times that's how these things happen. This is how they happen, or this is what the person hears because of the energy in which I made my I statement, because I am frustrated, I am at my wits end. I've tried the resources that I know to help. So I'm close to the wall even when I'm talking to you and you're trying to fix it, like, well, did you try this? Did you try that? And you're like, I tried it all before I even said something to you. So this is how it unravels
Yes,
extremely
ma'am.
quickly.
Yes, ma'am.
But that awareness to recognize what's happening, right? And a key you talked about earlier, and to stop and to pause for a moment. I think those are all techniques that we can carry into very real situations to perhaps engage in relationship a little bit differently. Um, and maybe some of the red flags can be pink flags and not red flags because we're not escalating to that point. So I definitely appreciate that. Um, Let me ask this question. And it's kind of stems from it. So, how can we help ourselves, friends, and family members support somebody who is dealing with mental health issues without unintentionally minimizing their struggles? And so, we can often be environments with other strong Black women. We can often be in situations with Black men who are our supporters and our providers and our coverings, and now they are expressing some level of instability, some level of crisis, and we are responding to their strength and the strong person that we know them to be. So what are some ways that we can deal with a mental health issue that we recognize or that comes up without unintentionally minimizing their struggle?
Asking questions goes a long way,
Yeah.
and how not only how you phrase and frame your questions, um, but don't assume you have to use terms like mental health, illness, counseling. I mean, you can eventually get to that, right? But simply trying to get to the heart of how a man or a woman feels about a certain thing is checking on their mental wellness,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and we have to, and on a macro level, I think we have to be careful about even how we use those words: mental health, mental illness, diagnoses, all those sorts of things, right? Because there's no emotion that isn't tied to what your mental wellness is, right? And even when we say things like, there's a stigma around mental health, we're literally setting ourselves up to assume that just checking on our mental is stigmatized. But it's just check. No, I'm just checking on your mental. Like me asking how you feel is me checking on your mental health. But if I say things like, we have a stigma around mental health, right? And I'm not saying, any of us made mistakes by doing that, online tonight. That's how we talk about it, right? Um, but it is amazing how deep and pervasive our subconscious thoughts are and how they set us up to perceive things so simplistically. If I could add an example that comes from my place of faith, if that's okay, right?
Okay.
Because I do counseling through the lens of faith. I'm a Christian-based counselor. And one of the things that I'm often dealing with in marital relationships is the difficulty between managing what headship and submission means for men and women, right? And one of the things I tell people is like, listen, when I call God my heavenly father, I'm not consciously saying, well, I'm a father, so I'm more like God than you. But guess what's subconsciously calling God, a deity who has no humanity in him, something male? It makes me equate maleness to godliness on a subconscious level, right? And so I tell people, like, listen, I ain't telling you to stop calling you Heavenly Father, but I am telling you to remind yourself the father he is ain't the father I am, or else I'm setting myself up for a God complex, right? Now, that's a whole other subject. I ain't trying to change the subject. I'm just trying to remind, like, we have an ability to either fix or hurt ourselves subconsciously just by the slight little variations in which we speak about certain things, right? So let's change the conversation to, and if I'm asking this, when you letting a person ask if you're okay, like maybe you start, so is it safe for us to start telling each other we're checking on each other's mental health or mental wellness, right? And that in and of itself starts to remove the idea of stigma. It's like, no,
Mhm.
that's a natural thing to do. How you doing? Right? That's a natural question to ask. That's literally me checking on your mental health. And we can just set it up in that way to have that slight subconscious mental shift. I think it'll go a long way.
That's really good. That's really good. I'm a leader in our organization, and our state director, who happens to be on the line with us today, she leads our meetings with checking in on our mental state. That is how we check into every meeting, and there's no rush. If you go through it in a couple of minutes, that's fine. If we take 45 minutes to an hour for everyone to get through it, and it creates this opportunity for us to just kind of dump the things that we're holding, because in leadership roles, every space isn't for everything.
Yes, ma'am.
And but she intentionally creates that space to let us dump. And then if we need to talk through it and work through it, those spaces are there. So that technique that you're talking about, I don't even think I equated it to a mental health check-in per se, but that's exactly what it is. And it is very beneficial. I think that sometimes many of us are waiting for that call, waiting for that conversation so that we can release some of those things. So that's a good tip as well.
I can verify my wife has told me that yes, that has been very helpful for her in certain moments, in certain seasons. So yes.
Yes. Yes. Because in we often do it at the end of our meetings. Like, okay,
Mhm.
we've taken care of all the business.
Mhm.
Now, what do we need to put out on the table?
To
So those are,
contextualize for those who didn't know, my wife is a soror. That's why I was able to say
yes.
it. My wife has been in those meetings.
Yes, she has been in those meetings. Yes, Dr. Durham is there, often listening and taking it all in and using the techniques that allow her not to pop off, but to respond very effectively. So we
Yeah.
get the benefits of the counseling. That is good. So, a few more questions before we wrap up. What practices or strategies can you all recommend specifically to women to build our emotional resilience so that it can enhance the relationships? You talked about earlier, sometimes we can be like spaghetti. And so I'm a feeler. I move with my emotions, and sometimes that works very well, and other times it can be a hindrance, and it can cause it to not be very effective. And so having emotional resilience as well as emotional intelligence definitely matter. But are there any strategies that you guys can leave us with today regarding that?
Johnny, while you're thinking, I'm gonna go ahead and answer.
Right.
Couple of things, and you've alluded to one of them already. You need community. We weren't created to be silos, right? Like your quality of life is a direct reflection of the quality of your most important relationships.
Mhm.
That's for everybody. That's for the most extroverted extrovert. That's for the most introverted introvert. That still applies and everywhere in between. And creating community and with specificity to women, your man ain't meant to meet all your needs.
That's good.
Men, period, aren't meant to meet all your needs. You need women in your life. You need strong women in your life. You need women in your life that will hold you accountable. You are a better woman to your man when you got strong women helping hold you up and hold you accountable, right? Um, and unfortunately, because so many of us have come from a place of lack with regards to relationship, and it works the other way. Like we expect our spouse slash significant other to check every box, and no one's built that way, right? Is not meant to be. And so creating community. And then with regards to resilience in and of itself, and I always trumpet this, and Johnny's probably heard me say this before, oppressed people over rely on resilience. Resilience is important. I ain't saying kick resilience to the curb, right? But when you think about how we're treated in the health and wellness industries, particularly in this country, right? They put excess resilience on us. We can take more pain, right? We can suffer more and still be well in their minds, right? And there's numerous reports on a national level and even here at a local level that will tell you that's how they view us, right? And while we're offended that they view us that way, guess who else views it that way?
We do.
Us.
Ourselves.
We see it that way too, right? And so we need to know how and when to relax our grip on resilience. Don't let it go, but we need to know how and when to relax our grip on it. And so the idea of being vulnerable simply about how you feel with your man, with your girlfriends, right? Just being willing to share, here's the things I'm going through. These are my weaknesses. These are my issues. These are my problems, right? And it doesn't mean I'm less than, right? In fact, I'm
Mhm.
probably going to be better because I shared it with you all. And so, resilience can often make us hold on to those things that we need to release in and around the right groups and spaces in those
Mhm.
communities, right? So I'll end there.
That was good.
And then another thing is the pinpoint with building that emotional resilience as well. Um, just having that moment of mindfulness. Most of the times, with mindfulness, it kind of, well, whenever we go through certain moments within our emotions, we either reflect on past or we reflect on what's to come and not just be in the middle. So with mindfulness will help us to really focus on being in our present space, our present moment and everything, and actually be appreciative of what is going on right now when it comes to our emotions. So a simplest thing of mindfulness is using your five senses. So think about what are the things that you love to see? What are things you love to hear, touch, smell, taste? And that will bring you yourself, recentering yourself and recharging yourself back to being in your present moment and such. You might need to go take some deep breaths. That's a part of mindfulness as well, to kind of recharge and reset yourself. I know the theme for today, we talked about pause and taking a step back. Definitely do that as well, and everything. And another thing, what you might want to do is reflect on something that you kind of overcame, because that could give you a sense of motivation to be like, okay, I've been through this, this moment before, or, I've been through this experience. I know how to work through this and everything. So kind of have like that reminder of like, you've been through it before. Let's get through it and everything.
That's good. That's good. I love the resources and the tips and the practical things that we can take away. I definitely believe that it will make everybody on this call have the ability to make a different choice that's going to have a better outcome because of this conversation. So I'm personally really grateful. One last question before we wrap up, or as we wrap up: how can we as community work together to reduce the stigma associated with mental health issues? This is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so we got a lot of things that we're talking about, but what are some things that we can really do other than just having conversation at a pointed period of time in the year to truly reduce the stigmas regarding mental health?
I say basically just keep educating each other. Don't wait on May to just say, "Oh, mental health awareness month. Let's just push out information." We could educate each other all the time, anytime. We could host events like this on Zoom, in person. Even bringing professionals out into the communities, especially the communities that don't even really see us in that professional setting and everything. So they can really realize and say that, oh, there's someone like me that's in this field of work and everything. And that kind of will give them more engaged and in tune to, you know, getting more resources, even wanting to try therapy or even want to try counseling or other, things of service and everything. But I think what it is really just keep educating each other, and not just use it as like, okay, we're going to just stick to May, talk about it, and then we just leave it alone right after that and wait till next year. No, you could always keep educating each other, keep sharing things. I know for me, and most of y'all probably know this, I do have a YouTube channel called JG Mental Health Fridays where I talk about different topics every Friday and provide coping skills just for people to, to practice and stuff because I know people need it, and everything. So just keep that, educating people and then also letting people know the different professionals that's out there.
Yeah. Mhm. And in whatever space you have influence, use that influence to destigmatize whomever you got influence over, right? Johnny got a YouTube channel, right? But even Latifah, you just, I'll put all your business out there. You just told me your son is recently engaged, right? Which means you're about to have a brand new daughter-in-law. Like you have a chance to influence that young lady's perspective of what it means for a young married woman to think about her own mental health and well-being and that of her husband, etc. Right? Use that opportunity to influence her as best as you can. Like Johnny, I don't presently have an active YouTube channel, but I'm a creative person, right? Do acting, voiceover work, that sort of thing. And I've noticed there've been quite an uptick in the world of media, be it social media, be it streaming services, television, movies, where people are starting to be very intentional about dealing with mental health and wellness in the stories they tell, right? And I intend to tell stories in a similar fashion. I'll start with a YouTube channel. I'm hoping my YouTube channel eventuates in a limited series that educates people about mental health spaces in a way that's entertaining, right? Because not everybody's going to show up to a webinar. Now, don't stop doing webinars. Do them as often as we can. Like I said, I've done this 8 times this year, and I'm hoping that, it goes beyond May, and that sort of thing. But we got to meet people where they are with the information, right? And so wherever you have access to people simply where they are, the folks might not have the time or the inclination to show up to something like this, might not Google a thing so that they understand it better, right? Push your understanding out into the community in any way that you can individually.
That's good. I thank you both so much. I thank you for your time. I thank you for this meaningful conversation. We will be uploading this to our YouTube channels. I guess YouTube channels are a thing,
Right.
so that people will have continuous access to this conversation and can come back to it for the different practical tips that were received. Um, and I really do thank you both for your time. I thank our audience for joining us today. I thank my sorors and my state director for being here. I see members of the D9 community. I see other mental health professionals who are on here today. And I'm really grateful for all of you supporting this work, and for really doing that internal work that it takes for us to show up with our well being intact so that we are making a meaningful impact on those that we are encountering with. So thank you all so much for joining us today, and we will be back with future webinars. Good night.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.